Hey guys, it's Sam. I am going to be talking about how my 2021 personal goals went and then talking about my goals for 2022. And this month I am working with Dossier again with their perfumes because it's always a goal to smell good. So as I've mentioned, over this winter, Dossier has been sending me a couple of perfumes a month, and the two for this month are similar to last month in that I have never had these perfumes before, but I wanted to try them, but they were just out of my price range originally. If you're not familiar with Dossier, they are a perfume company that creates perfumes that are inspired by high-end perfumes, but for a fraction of the price. Most of their bottles range from like $29 to like $49, where most of the perfumes that they are inspired by are like hundreds of dollars a bottle. I have tried scents before that I have had before in the past, like the full bottles, hundreds of dollars, and they're the exact same smells. So this month I got a mix of one scent that's slightly more like feminine and one that's a little bit more like musky up my alley. So first we have Woody Sandalwood, which is inspired by another Le Labo scent. This is the Le Labo Sental 33. I tried a different Le Labo scent I think 2 months ago, and it is one of my favorite perfumes that I have. This is like so similar. Like the Le Labo perfumes are so fucking good, so anytime that I see that they're gonna do Le Labo like inspired by, I'm gonna buy it. So this has top notes of violet leaves and cardamom, middle notes of orris, ambrox, cedarwood, and cypriol, and base notes of musk, sandalwood, and amber. I love musk, sandalwood, and amber. This smells like I'd imagine the Meryl Streep's character in Devil Wears Prada smells. Elegant, classy, blunt. Like it's not floral. I mean, Woody Sandalwood is really it. Like it's clean, but like mysterious, not too heavy, like very light smell. Like it just smells like you smell good. Like I think most people would smell this on someone and be like, that's not even a perfume, it's like a soap. But it doesn't smell soapy. You know what I mean? Oh, so good. It's expensive. Expensive smelling, but not expensive price. And then the other one was one that I was seeing a lot on perfume TikTok, so I picked up a bottle because I wanted to see what it smelled like. And that is Musky Musk, creative name. But it's inspired by the Juliet Has a Gun, Not a Perfume. This is so interesting because it's like so simple. So the top note is none, apparently, there's no top note. The middle notes is Cetilox and Iso E Super, I don't know what that is. And then the base notes are Hebenolide and musks. So this is like very, like I said, very simple. What this reminds me of is an elevated version of the perfumes that are at like a American Eagle, maybe some of like the Victoria's Secret perfumes, whatever, like the little perfumes that would be at some of those stores in the early aughts, but grown up, like very cool girl grown up. I could not, because those scents make like no sense to me. It's just kind of like musky, simple, nothing too complicated. Again, kind of like clean, I think very like airy. Yeah, so if you liked the smells of those perfumes back in the day, this is like kind of that vibe, but elevated, you know, grown up. So yeah, if you're interested in trying out Dossier for yourself, there's a link down below for you to check out. There is free shipping, free returns, and you do get a sample of the perfume with your perfume so you can try it out before using the bottle and then return it if you're not interested. Dossier has greatly expanded my perfume collection. I'm very thankful. A couple of the ones that they have sent me over the last couple of months have become new favorites and like signature scents. They're so good. So in reviewing my 2021 goals, it didn't necessarily hit a lot of them, but what I discovered was similar to how my reading and stuff went. I think it was just sort of the nature of the beast with last year, but also I don't think I did enough intention setting around it, because when I went back and looked at my bullet journal, for example, around the beginning of the year, usually that's what I use to sort of like focus in everything, and I hadn't even done my cover page, so I didn't remember what my word was for last year, which means I wasn't really intentional with it last year. There were a lot of goals that over the course of the year sort of dropped off because they were a bit too specific for an overarching year goal. I should have made them more like every 3-month goals, like my seasonal goals, because I still did those for the most part. So I am basically going to be slightly more vague in some ways for the 2022 goals, and I did a lot more again, intention setting and sort of deep diving with it like I've done in previous years. So I think it's gonna be a little bit more successful than it was. But let's get into the goals for 2021. The first and major one was regulating my sleep. This has been a constant goal for me, and I'm feeling like I'm finally getting some good footing with it, but 2021 this was very hit and miss. I wanted to reliably get about 8 hours of sleep. I had some months where I did this, some months where I didn't. I did not average 8 hours overall. It definitely changed month to month. I went back and looked at my Fitbit stat for hours slept, and I was getting, it kind of depended, and it was hard to kind of track because I would sleep a lot less during the week and then make up for it on the weekends, but you're not really making up for it. But then when it did the average, it said that that was the average. So yeah, but I would say I was getting more so between like 6.5 to 7.5 on average throughout the year if I was to do the math on that. But I told myself that I wanted to start falling asleep or like being in bed by 2 a.m., which is actually a decent goal, but I wasn't really doing that. And according to my Fitbit, I was falling asleep anywhere from like between 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. Or after, and no, that's not good. So because of that, getting to bed too late, falling asleep too late, I've had some trouble lately in the last like year or so falling asleep quicker. I stay asleep, but I don't fall asleep as quickly as I used to when I was younger. So those things, I basically need to calibrate one to calibrate the others, and the biggest thing there is getting to bed earlier, so I'm overall falling asleep earlier, etc. So I didn't do that, but it is also a constant battle of mine. Second was I wanted to complete an ACT course, which is a type of therapy modality that I am into, and I did do this, I think mostly because this was on a deadline. It was only a course that I paid a lot of money for, like hundreds of dollars, and it was only open during a certain window, so I had to finish it during that window, and I did do that. Then cooking. I said that I wanted to cook more meals, learn more recipes, whatever. I sort of had a plan for this, and I was gonna plan a meal at the beginning of the month, and then get the groceries in the second week, and then cook it during the third. I did not do this. What I have decided, and what I realized from last year, is that I need easy, low effort meals. The meals that are currently in my repertoire are that way. I'm just getting kind of sick of them over the years. And I have a decent amount, I probably have like 15 things to sort of rotate between. But what I need is very low effort weeknight stuff, because I was finding that I wasn't, hi Binks. I was finding that at night, like after work, I get done at work by like 9, I take the dog out for a walk, I go to the park usually for like an hour, I would get back and be like 10. At that point I'm like, I don't even want to cook a meal, I just want to like eat a bowl of cereal. So I wasn't getting like the nutrition that I wanted to get, or even I didn't really have the energy to experiment. So what I need is a little bit of like very easy things, plus some potential meal prep here and there. Even if it's not so much meal prep in the way of like the way we think of it with dieting, that I'm not interested in that, but more so like I need components pre-made that I can like very easily throw together. The weeks that I would make something like a burrito mix, or I can't think of other things, that's one that kind of comes to mind. Those are weeks that I would eat more like substantial meals. So I need to stick to that. And then that also helps me not get something like DoorDash all the time, which I'm not doing it all the time, but I tend to be a once, on my worst week, twice a week DoorDasher. And that's less about the health of that and more so like just it's expensive. But some weeks I was like, I'm actually really hungry for more than like cereal, but I don't have the energy to make something. So that's what I'm focusing in on more for 2022. Fourth thing was to get a professional natal chart reading, which I did do. It was very insightful. I actually need to go back, it's recorded. I need to go back and actually journal about some of the things that she told me. And I would actually be interested in getting also like a year review. A lot of astrologers do 18-month sort of like what's going on currently in your chart, and I have a lot of apps that will do that for me as well, but I would like the more like tailored thing. So I'm very interested in doing something like that. I thought it was really fun. It's a very like insightful way to kind of do some like self-development stuff. The fifth thing I wanted to do more was yoga. I wanted to have some like yoga days. I wanted to work on a certain asana each month or season potentially, I forget what it was, and I wanted to do a 30 days of yoga. I didn't do any of that. I just could not commit to yoga. I was hoping to join a gym that had yoga, and my gym still barely has classes, honestly. The yoga gyms around here are pretty expensive, but I have contemplated doing that just as something a little bit more reliable, and I could not get the motivation to do yoga at home. What I have been doing is I do yoga stretching a lot before bed while I'm meditating, so yoga is not completely gone from my life, but there's like certain moves that I just do over and over as stretching more than anything else before bed. And I would like to get a little bit more like dedicated of a practice, but I just still haven't worked out how to make that happen for me. The sixth goal was less social media. I kind of did this. I set some limits for myself. Like at the beginning of the year, I really only wanted to spend like 15 minutes on Twitter per day. I pretty much do that, but that's mostly because I made Twitter no longer interesting to myself. I got rid of and blocked a lot of people that were just causing a lot of drama, words I didn't like, hashtags I didn't like, whatever, so Twitter is like no longer interesting to me. I said I wanted to limit my time on TikTok. I have not managed to do that whatsoever. I have some plans for that, but more or so, TikTok is the place where I go for complete dissociating and but also learning stuff. It's a little bit of a mix of both. So I was not sticking to my like hour a day, my time limits. I've tried a lot of different things. What I basically need to do and what I'm going to talk about for 2022 is like, you need to get the phone away from you. You have to do more social media detox days. I did pretty reliably do my social media detox days more months than not. It wasn't every single week all the time, but multiple days a month and things, and they always made me feel better. So I still managed to do like a little bit of this. Then I had a goal of doing some savings funds. I think I just added these as like, oh, I should add a financial goal. I didn't really need this. One, we weren't traveling, so I didn't need to really add to travel funds. I've kept my emergency fund up to where it needs to be. I have a little bit of a fund now for when I fully go private practice. I got that pretty easily. So savings goals wasn't like a hard to achieve thing. Like I kind of did it, kind of didn't. I think in my head I sort of wanted to do more, but I didn't really need to. Then I mentioned this in my book wrap up, but I wanted to read one workbook a month. I did not do this. I think I read about like 2 or 3 possibly in the year, but I can't devote that much time to work stuff, and reading is part of my free time, and so it's not super appealing to me. I would say maybe like 1 a quarter is a decent goal. I'm not setting it as a goal, but that's a little bit more realistic for me. 1 a month, although I could definitely do it, I don't want to because it takes away from my like fun time. I mentioned some sustainability things as my 9th goal. That I definitely did. I've recently done a video on that here on this channel about like sustainability practices I put into place in 2021, so I will link that on the screen for more details about that. And then my final goal was to grow out my hair and some strategies I was going to use to do that. I obviously did not do that, but I don't consider it a failure because one of the things I put on there was, if you want to cut your hair, you have to wait 2 weeks. And I would say I waited closer to 2 months after I fully like wanted to do it. And I feel better now having my hair cut off. So yeah, long hair is no longer for me. That's totally fine. So now we're gonna get into the 2022 stuff. What I did for this year is go kind of back into how I did things for 2018 and 2019 and even 2020, which I think is gonna give me a little bit more focus on the goals like I previously have had, and that has been more successful for me. So I went through and I did a 2021 sort of like wrap up of the year. Like I kind of did a calendar of like all the things that happened like throughout the months and stuff, which I think was like a nice way to wrap it up. And then I picked my word for 2022 and I made a little page. I'm not going to show you my whole bullet journal. I have in the past, but I don't feel like doing all the editing for that. But I made my like front page for it so I can go back and reference it. And for this year, I chose the word steady. But then I also kind of made a little cloud of words around that for what that means, because that word is like sort of kind of vague. And I wasn't, you know, I want to make sure that I held on to like the vibes of that. So what that means here and what I'm striving for is secure, calm, wholehearted, anchored, authentic, and consistent, and a little bit of like healed basically. So focusing in on a lot of just like building on the ideas that I've had of previous years of like 2020, for example, my word was balance. So like kind of fully integrating some of that in, sticking to like boundaries, just like stability and security, and but also in a very like calm, happy, authentic way. I did do my little me in 1 year spread. I'll just give you a flash of that. That's what that looks like for me this year, and I did that a little bit last year, but this feels so much more integrated because you can't really see, but I even made some connections between different spheres. So for this year, I had like a little physical health section, I had a routine section, which I haven't had in the past. I did a mental and spiritual, and then I did a relationship / connections. And there's some things that kind of fall into multiple categories. So here's sort of the vibe that I want for next year. And then I'll kind of focus in on what the actual goals are from this. So for physical health, I want to find a solution to my digestive health. There's only so much I have control of this, but basically over the last handful of years, I've had some really bad digestive issues. I've recently gotten some tests, and there's nothing like on the test that's wrong, but I have really bad symptoms. So I just want to get that under control whatever way that I can. I'm working with the doctor on that. More consistent sleep schedule that falls into physical health and routines. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Increased nutrition, that also kind of falls into routines, but is sort of building off of that idea where like I need more consistent nutrition because I've just been eating things that are like very easy, and it's not about like a weight thing or whatever. It's just like I need vitamins, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what I'm wanting to focus on. And then increased movement, that's also fun. That also ties into routines. I, for a long time, have been very on like working out just as weightlifting, and I do really like that, but I think what I want now is weightlifting in combination with other things. Yoga, potentially climbing, some more hiking and things during the nicer weather, things like that that just make it a little bit more like well-rounded, maybe some more like calisthenic body weight type stuff, just a little bit more variety. Then for routines, I already mentioned a few of them, but also a sustainable content creation schedule, because now that I'm doing a bunch of different platforms, but I'm making content on TikTok too, I'm making content here, and I feel like in the last couple of weeks I have sort of like figured out a schedule for that, but I want to kind of like stick to that. And then a cleaning routine as well, which I have sort of figured out, but sort of not. I'm still kind of like in between with that. Then for mental/spiritual, I said continuing to evolve my witchcraft practice as well as more time in nature, continue on the digital minimalism track with like putting some, you know, sort of goals in place for not spending so much time on social media, adding a little bit more novelty to my life, enjoying the present, a little bit more mindfulness, and then doing more of my shadow work and things just for, again, like personal development. And then as far as relationships and connections, I just said more fulfilling connections, more witchy friends, which ties to the witchcraft practice, doing some healing around attachment style, which also ties into like that mental spiritual side and the shadow work, increasing my healthy communication and vulnerability. That's around mostly like dating and stuff. It's a lesson that I've learned sort of moving into 2022. Again, the good boundaries, and then career networking, which ties to the mental and spiritual and the idea of hopefully in 2022 starting a private practice. So what does that mean goal-wise? I haven't worked out concretely all of these necessarily, but so for sleep, I'm just trying to stick to a sleep schedule. What I am thinking is on average I want to be in bed between 2 and 3 a.m. And then waking up between like 12 and 1 max. Will there be times that sort of varies? Yes, but since I tend to work from 1 or 2 until like 9 o'clock at night, and then sometimes after getting stuff done, that makes sense for my routine and my schedule. I would never be somebody that wakes up at like 9 or even 10 and then not work until 2, because I'm someone that if I have to work later in the day, I feel like I can't do anything else. So I really need to just wake up before work and then get my stuff done after work. And so this schedule works for me. Limiting social media before bed. This is always hit and miss for me, but I'm trying to do that more than not. One of the ways I'm trying to do this is I have installed a feature on my phone that I can switch it over to grayscale, and as soon as it's grayscale, my brain wants my phone less. Science. I'm also wanting to do potentially some like blue light glasses to filter out the blue light to help with sleep. For digital minimalism, limiting the TikTok scrolling. I can make content and stuff, but the like hours and hours of scrolling I don't want to do anymore. So I do want some like after work social media limits, and like putting my phone in the other room. I've also said, and this ties into my movement thing I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but letting myself after work watch TikTok if I go walk on the treadmill or something. So it just sort of is like a reward for like movement kind of stuff, especially in the winter. Again, it's not like a punishing type way. Like I walk on the treadmill very casually. I'm not like, you know, killing myself on that thing. But those are some of the things I want to do as far as like limiting my time. And then I also want to continue doing like on average a once a week social media detox where like I'm not spending any time on it at all. Then the shadow work, attachment stuff, healing stuff is basically a very basic goal of doing some kind of journaling, tarot card reading, whatever, about once a week with this, maybe even reading something from a book around any kind of like self-help healing type thing once a week. So I'm tracking that monthly in my bullet journal. I have also gotten back to tracking a lot of this stuff in my bullet journal. And as far as a cleaning routine, I want to do a 5-minute clean before bed. Binks keeps shaking his head, and he's underneath my greenhouse, and so he's like hitting his ear on like the greenhouse, and that's why it's making that noise. But anyway, I've been doing pretty consistently a 5-minute cleanup before bed. I set a timer for 5 minutes and I clean. I've mostly been like vacuuming and stuff, sometimes cleaning off countertops, but that kind of keeps my place pretty well maintained, and then I do deep cleaning every once in a while, kind of on a schedule. So that's something I'm also tracking in my bullet journal. I have a bunch of daily trackers, and it involves the going to bed by 2, the cleaning thing, reading, which I mentioned as some of my like reading goals, and then one of the goals I also have is eating more fruits and vegetables, and so I'm tracking, again, do you eat like at least some fruits and vegetables every day? I'm doing that. I also want to get about 64 ounces of water. That's another nutrition kind of goal. Doing that. Again, these are not for weight loss or changing my body in any way. This is purely for like, these are things that are good for you. Then as far as the movement, another thing I track is just, did you have some positive movement in your day-to-day. And so for me on weekdays, just to have something to kind of like go off of, I want to strive for like 6,000 steps a day. That's pretty easy for me to get. And then on days that I don't work, 8,000. I can usually get more than that, but like that's sort of what I'm striving for. So again, when I'm working from home all day and I'm sitting on my couch, after work, I'll walk on the treadmill for like half an hour max, and I can usually hit those numbers. So it's not anything crazy, because again, the health behaviors that we found over time are benefiting to everybody is something like half an hour of movement a day. It doesn't need to be anything nuts. So there's a lot of just like, with that whole steady kind of secure idea, it is sort of dialing into just like, what are the behaviors that you know are helpful and positive and that are really easy, and like, let's do those. So those are the goals for overall the year. I am also going to be doing some seasonal goals. So what I'm trying to do is making my more specific goals be seasonal, just to see if, again, I can kind of like stick to them, have a shorter time span I'm doing them in, whatever. So these are the overarching things that I think are going to be very easy for me, generally speaking, to hit for 2022. But then seasonally, you're going to see me talking about like more specific things that might be pushing myself slightly more. So comment below, let me know what your goals are for 2022, your intentions and things, and then what things you did or didn't do in 2021. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.